Hey Jack, are you well?
Hello, Cal. Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. How are you?
I'm very good. Here we are in week 7. It's flying by.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. This started out as a bit of a sort of trial and error, really, to see if it worked, but people seem to be enjoying it. So we're still here.
We're still here. We're enjoying it and others are enjoying it, which is great. So today's guest, an interesting one because you grew up playing sport against this person. Tell us a bit more about that.
I did, yeah. We've got Adam Ball joining us. Adam was probably one of the most talented kids you'll ever sort of come across, really, not just in his sport cricket, which he went on to play professionally, played for England under-19s, played for Kent. He's now actually retired from the game. So he's got a really interesting story, but growing up, Bally was just the most talented, sort of, as I say, kid you'd ever come across, really. Played really good level of football, academy level football. And I still say to this day that my greatest ever sporting achievement, and I've played a relatively good level of sport, but my greatest ever sporting achievement was we're about 13, 14, surviving 4 overs against Bally. He was coming steaming in, left arm quick, rattled through our whole team, and I just come away with bruises galore, but he didn't quite get my wicket, which again, I think it was a little bit of luck rather than judgment on my part, but it still stands as my best sporting achievement.
Do you reckon he remembers it?
Probably not, but we can see.
Let's find out. Let's get him on.
Let's do it.
Thanks a lot for joining us. Really appreciate that. We're going to go a little cliche and start at your youth, if that's all right, because all Jack's been going on about all week is how good a sportsman you were growing up. So we're gonna start at the beginning, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem at all.
So Jack, tell us about Adam as a sportsman growing up.
All I'd say is that we both played for rival football clubs when we were really young, sort of mini soccer, and then we both went to sort of, I'd say, rival schools. We never massive rivalry, but we went to different schools. We played a lot of cricket against each other. And I said this to Cal earlier, when we used to turn up to places, both teams, both football teams, cricket teams, we'd look and see, is Bally there? If Bally's not there, we might stand a chance today. If he was there, we had no fucking chance. So, Bally, yeah, tell us a bit about football, cricket, rugby growing up. Tell us a bit about what you
Yeah, I suppose I was one of those annoying buggers, really, that was good at any sort of sport I put my hand to. Now, I say that, but I say any sport. It was the 3 main ones, basically, that everyone sort of dreamed as a kid of being a professional type thing, and that was cricket, football and rugby. Now, it was football to start with, and yeah, you was at Long Lane you was
a bit after you. Yeah, I was at Parkmere.
Yeah. But yeah, Long Lane was where I started, and yeah, I ended up playing for Arsenal under 9, so that was, I think, their first intake. So that was sort of my first step. Now, when I played for Arsenal, I think. Little bit of publicity, but I've never actually been able to get hold of these guys to have an actual chat about the good old days. But I played with obviously some decent players that are still playing now. So the big one in my team was Harry Kane.
Oh wow!
Now obviously, yeah, he's gone on to play for England and be
done all right for himself.
Probably 10 times better than anyone would have imagined, really. Well, at sort of when I was playing with him at 9, 10, 11, and yeah, he wasn't the standout player in our team, and I think that's probably a good point for anyone that's going to be watching this is that, look, people mature at different ages. At the age of 9, 10, 11, you don't need to be the finished article. So yeah, he was probably, in terms of in my team, the one that's gone on to be the sort of the standout. Now there's a lot that are still playing decent level and making a decent living for sure. The guys that were above, you had the likes of Jack Wiltshire, who he come from Luton at age 10, so they obviously could see something in him even at age 10.
So what was your position, Adam?
I was a centre half, so I actually got asked sort of this the other day actually about whether I sort of regret or what, maybe not necessarily a regret, but where I potentially could have got to if I carried on. Now, my issue was that I didn't have the pace. I wasn't slow, but when I went to that next step and I was playing, and at Arsenal, I was the slowest in the team. And they always used to go at me about my pace and all that. And I wasn't slow, but these kids were just rapid. I think that's probably what would have stopped me from getting to the top level. Now, could I have sort of earned myself a nice living and been a pretty decent footballer? I would like to say, yeah, I probably could have, because again, even if you're playing in the conference, or even in League Two, you can still sort of live a nice life. Although you're travelling to Yeovil on a Tuesday night, I'm not sure that's quite nice, but yeah, and I think from then it's actually quite an interesting story how I come out of that, and I actually turned around to my dad and said, "Oh, I don't want to play anymore."
At what age, sorry?
What was that, sorry?
At what age did you have that chat with your dad?
I had that, when I was 12.
Okay.
So God knows what he was thinking. And actually to this day, I haven't actually sat down with him over a beer and spoke to him about it.
His pension dwindled away in front of him.
Well, yeah. I don't know what he must have been thinking. But yeah, and I suppose, to be fair, because of what essentially has happened, we probably haven't had to think about it, because I sort of, from then, I then played rugby for sort of a year. Well, I played it for a couple of years, and then cricket at age 14 then took off. And I suppose that's why probably it sort of hadn't been thought about, because actually cricket just took over at exactly the same level.
And did you enjoy playing cricket a lot more than you did football and rugby?
Well, it was just, I suppose, I would say that I specifically enjoyed it more. I suppose basically what happened was at age 14, 15, cricket was the one where I was in the academy at Kent, and I suppose it was the one that was where I was, I suppose, that sort of the highest level. Now, comparing it to football, I didn't start playing cricket until I was like 11. So it wasn't as if I'd sort of been playing it since I was very small. So again, who knows? It might have been that I'd essentially been playing football for all of my life, type thing, up until 12. Not that that was a long time, but yeah, it may have been that I'd sort of bit fed up with it and stuff like that. But yeah, that was sort of it. And then once I hit 14 on the academy at Kent, from a cricket point of view, it just naturally, without even thinking about it, it was just each sort of level and each year something happened, whether that was sort of playing for a specific team or getting a contract and stuff like that. And it just all happened sort of quite naturally without even really thinking about it.
You started cricket at 11. When did you know you were a little bit better than everyone else around you?
Well, I suppose, again, it's an interesting point, that one, because, and this is probably what potentially stopped me from going to that next level, is that I probably, in all of it, I didn't really have that, I suppose, maybe not necessarily arrogance, but that borderline, you know what I mean? Self-belief, arrogance. And again, you guys probably come across these top sportsmen, and I'm seeing it now, where the likes of Kent now, Ollie Robinson, Zach Crawley, when you speak to these kids, they know they're good.
Yeah.
Where I think I didn't truly 100% believe that I was good enough. I think there was a way, and I think that's what probably stopped me from getting to sort of that next level. Is that I was a bit of a nice guy, sort of always just trying to be friends with everyone and get on with everyone. And I think, I didn't, whenever there was punchy calls, I just sort of got on with it and didn't really ask the right questions or challenge people and stuff like that. So yeah. It's an interesting one, that, because again, when you get picked for something, so I say in the academy at Kent Academy at 14, I was the only one at age 14 on that academy. So, but then obviously I'm then on an academy with sort of 18, 19-year-olds that essentially are at that point better than me. So it gives you that sort of little bit of a leveler. But at my age group, I probably was obviously one of the better cricketers around.
And there was a big call up coming sort of a couple of years later, wasn't there? When you were sort of, was it 16 you were when you got called up to England under-19s for the first time?
Yeah, that's it. So that was an amazing sequence of events, because that started actually, and I was 16, and I got injured playing football, so I was still playing a bit of football. I think would have been for Long Lane at the time, or it might have been Grasshoppers. I can't remember.
Some iconic teams of South East London there.
Yeah. Well, I actually got injured playing football for the school. I busted my ankle. It was just a real bad sprain. I was actually I got a call to go out to Bangladesh, and I think I swerved that one nicely. I think good time to be injured. But so the England under-19s at the time were gearing up to go out to the World Cup in the January, and it was actually a lad that was at Kent called James Goodman, and basically he was struggling with sort of being away, and so they needed someone to sort of go out and replace him, and they were going to send me out, but I was obviously injured. And I suppose I didn't really think anything of it. I then turned up to Loughborough, which is where the ECB sort of Centre of Excellence is. And they pulled me straight in and was like, it was actually Callum Haggett, who still now plays for Kent. He had a bad heart. I suppose a bit of a interesting story there, where you probably would, a bit like Fabrice Mwamba, which it actually happened to.
Yeah. Oh wow!
They caught it early, luckily, and he basically went into surgery the next day after getting the scan. Yeah. Unfortunately, he obviously couldn't go, and I was able to take his place. I went up to Manchester. It was sort of probably around, it would have been like the 16th, 17th of December, something like that. Spent a sort of week or so with the lads, and then flew out to New Zealand to play to play in it.
What an experience!
I think it was the 2nd of Jan or something. I think it might actually have been the 1st of Jan actually. And then obviously in that squad, you had some proper players that are still playing
Big
now.
names.
So Stokes, Root, Vince, Butler.
To name a few.
It was a proper serious team. Probably looking back on it, we should have probably won that at ease, really, how everyone's gone.
But Bawley, you were 16 going into that team. You were, we touched on it earlier, but you were playing school cricket like literally a year before, or even in that year. And then all of a sudden you're getting called up to play for England under-19s with the likes of, and again, we didn't know what they were going to go on to achieve, but Stokes, Root, Butler. How was it going into that dressing room? You were a couple of years younger, and at that age, that's a big age gap. How was that going in there as a 16-year-old?
Well, yeah, it was obviously pretty daunting going in to, I suppose, any dressing room where a group of individuals have been together for a certain period of time. And I think, obviously, this is where it stands me in good stead, is the way I am, obviously being pretty approachable and sort of just getting on with people. I settled in pretty nicely, which was good. And again, I suppose I don't know what the politically correct way of putting this is, but essentially I was a bit rough and ready out of South East London, and most of them lads were saying that Stokes is not exactly your private school type of individual, but essentially that is what most of them lads were all privately school. Get my words out. Educated at private schools, and I suppose, where I was a bit sort of lived on the streets type thing, and was a bit rough and ready compared to them boys. Which that's the thing they absolutely loved. Yeah. And I suppose that really did help me settle in. And again, looking back at what I had in terms of that, is that I was probably compared to other lads that have been to private schools and just essentially trained, is that I was a little bit more streetwise. I knew how to think on my feet. I had to do that and use my brain, as opposed to just rely on technique type thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I had a certain amount of ability, but yeah, used to sort of think my way through things as opposed to sort of rely on out and out sort of technique and
what you've been told to do.
So your first few games in the under-16s, how did you do?
Under
19s, sorry.
19s, yeah.
Sorry.
So I played. Now, yeah, this is the most nervous I've ever been. I played against Afghanistan. They were in our group, which was my first game. And yeah, running up to bowl that first ball was just, I'd never experienced anything like it, to be honest. And yeah, like to be fair, I can't actually remember how I went. I think I might. I'm not too sure. I think I've got a great photo actually from when I played the next game against India. And I bowled. I was trying to look for the video the other day. Actually, I bowled an absolute seed. I nicked this bloke off. Just caught behind. Genuinely, it was beautiful. And like there's a photo. Basically, the whole team just coming up and like hugging me.
Brilliant.
And it was yeah. That was a pretty special moment actually. But yeah, again, that was sort of the most nervous I've probably ever been. And I suppose again that probably then obviously stood me in good stead for then when I actually come back and then started to play for Kent, which I suppose again was a different type of sort of nerves really, because then you were playing in front of a decent sized crowd.
Yeah, but just before we get on to Kent, that under-19 World Cup, you've got Stokes, you've got Root, Butler. Did they all stand out? And are you surprised at what they've achieved in the game, or was it just obvious back then that they were going to be top players?
I think the biggest one was probably Root. You probably wouldn't necessarily have said that he was the best player. Butler, Vince and Stokes were stand out, I suppose, genuine. They are class, you know what I mean, in terms of ability.
Yeah.
I think Root was one where he wasn't necessarily stand out from that point of view, but from a work ethic point of view, he just didn't stop hitting balls, and just absolutely loved the game. And yeah, it's probably I suppose it's again sort of for people watching this, two different ways of going about it. You know what I mean? You've got the guys that have that sort of genuine natural ability that go on to then understand what they've actually got and utilise it. And then you've got someone that has just got the ultimate work ethic, and knows his game inside out, and then utilises that to the best of his ability. So yeah, to again sort of, yeah, I suppose Stokes, look, he was a genuine all-rounder then, bowled quick and smashed it out of the park. He's exactly the same now as back then as what he is now. And yeah, and then the one, to be fair, he didn't actually play that much because he got ill, but Butler, again, he was probably the one that was like from its sort of class point of view, he was serious, but he didn't actually get to play because he was ill.
I hear a lot of people talk about Butler and say that the way he strikes a cricket ball, it's a different sound to a lot of other pros.
Yeah,
just it's so pure. Baldy, I want to. You touched on it very, very quickly, but let's go ahead a bit now and into when you came back from that World Cup. You sort of broke into the Kent team, and it was sort of your home county. We've both grown up there, and as you say, there was some big crowds for some of your first few games. How was that?
Yeah, so I suppose I was pretty fortunate, really, and it was Rob Key, who obviously now is sort of a big pundit on Sky, and that was the one that gave me my first game. And most of my games were obviously in the one-day scenario, which again is renowned for, I suppose, being fun and playing in front of crowds and stuff like that. And I that first season, I got to go on a run with Ken of playing in the 2020 team, and I was in a bowling attacker: James Treadwell, Wahab Riaz, Azam Mahmood, and Joel Langeveld.
Wow.
Then there was me, and yeah, we got to the quarter final. And I was sort of played a very pivotal part of that team. And that was, again, playing, like you said, sort of playing on a Friday night. To be fair, this is an interesting story actually. And again, looking back on it, I suppose seems ludicrous. But I played every game that's season, and it got to the last two games, and England under-19s had South Africa over.
Okay.
And so it was in the middle of a sort of a one-day series or something like that. And the under-19 would release me to go and play for Kent. And the last two games were on a Thursday night over at the Oval. So you can imagine what that would have been like as a 18-year-old. And then over at Chelmsford. And again, you can imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah.
And obviously, so they were both must-win games to get into the quarter-final. And obviously, as a 18-year-old, if I can obviously go and perform in something like that, it's a massive sort of tick box, really.
Definitely.
In a high-pressure situation where the under-19 side of it, look, don't get me wrong, you're playing for your country, and it's a massive honour to do that. But at that sort of stage, you know what I mean? It was a bit of a no-brainer what I should have really been doing. Because essentially, when they were playing, I was sat in a hotel room watching it anyway. It wasn't actually didn't have games on, so a bit frustrating from that point of view. Looking back on it, hopefully some lads won't be put through that. But yeah, that was that. And then we got to the quarter final, and because of that, and Darren Stevens ended up basically taking over my role in them two games and done all right. Naturally, as a more experienced head, I did come back into the team for the quarter final.
Yeah. But
obviously, pressure situation, more experienced head. Rob Key went for Darren Stevens instead of myself, so I ended up only bowling one over, I think it was. But we ended up losing that game. Somehow, which I think we must have got 200 and they chased it down. I'm pretty sure.
I think it's the game. I was chatting to one of my mates earlier about the fact that we had you on the pod, and obviously everyone around our area kind of knows who you are. And I said to him, "Oh, do you remember we got Adam Ball on?" And he goes, "Do you know where? I remember watching him in the T20 quarter final. We were in Zante on a lad's holiday.
Oh yeah,
we were in a bar, just about to get on the beers again, watching you play a quarter final. We were like, bit of a difference."
Yeah. So again, like, I don't know how we lost that game, but yeah, obviously an amazing experience. And again, I then went on to play a lot more 2020 and one-day stuff, which was a great experience. And I suppose basically then sort of moving on to then obviously try and sort of cement my place in the team and essentially give myself a career for the future. Probably what happened a little was that when I first started, I was obviously a new kid on the block. No one would really see me. They then obviously year on year, they sort of they've seen your action, they've faced you and start to work out what you can and what you can't do type thing. And then I suppose the other thing as well, I didn't, obviously with cricket, is a bit of a nightmare that you play 50 over stuff, 2020 and red ball stuff, and it's all sort of interlinked into one. It's a bit more separated now, but you can be playing a red ball game and then the next day you're going to play a 2020, so you're always sort of changing what skills you're sort of trying to draw upon and stuff like that. And I think that did really sort affect me quite a bit, because actually what happened was I was sort of, I suppose, so blinded about playing white ball cricket that actually the red ball side of things sort of took a bit of a back burner.
Okay.
And yeah, I sort of then, once I got the white ball thing, it was sort of then, oh, well, actually, how am I going to get into the red ball thing? I need to get some consistency in my bowling, and actually going from white ball cricket, where you're looking for inconsistency in a sense, where you're bowling a Yorker, a bouncer, a slower ball, every other ball type thing, especially in 2020, to then trying to come back and actually just bowl line and length every single ball. And I think I really struggled with that, and it sort of led to probably a lot of some sort of action changes and stuff like that, and I never really sort of got it from a bowling point of view. From sort of 20 onwards, I really struggled from a bowling point of view, which then gave me more sort of what's the word, from a batting point of view, I got more opportunity and stuff like that, which again, growing up, I speak to a lot of coaches that I work with, and people that knew me and saw me play. It was actually all along, they always thought that I was a batter that essentially could bowl, but I got my opportunities bowling. So it sort of, and then what happened was, once I then got a few opportunities, was in and out of the team all the time, just a couple of games here and there, and sort of just couldn't really cement myself in it. And then when I got released, I was then basically, because no one had really seen me for a good few years, everyone still thought that I was a bowler that batted a little bit. And they were sort of like, yeah, we don't really need someone like that. Where actually I was a completely different player at 24 than I was at 18.
Yeah, and Bally, do you think the fact that you could bowl, you could bat, I mean, I've seen you field at slip as well, and you're an incredible slip fielder. Do you think the fact that you could do a bit of everything was actually a bit to your detriment almost?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. A lot of people obviously say that to me, and I think, again, looking back on it, it probably was because of that. Because if they needed a sort of someone to come in and bowl a few overs and bat down the order, I could do that. I then also opened the batting a couple of times. I think I don't actually know this, I should look it up, but I think I batted every position from 1 down to 10. I don't think I took off 11, which is a good feat, I suppose. But
it's a touch.
Again,
I did.
And I suppose that was the issue. And the other thing, from a fielding point of view, like you say, I did pride myself on trying to be as good a fielder as I can. And with that meant that I'd always be first on the list for 12th man duties.
Yeah.
So especially 2020, I was essentially in the squad every single time without foul, because I could bat, I could bowl, and I could field. So if they needed someone at last minute to come in and do a job, I could go and do it. And also, if they needed someone to go on a field, if someone's got injured, I could go and do that. And I think that obviously meant that stopped me from playing other cricket. And I suppose, essentially you get used to not really playing in that sort of high pressure arena.
Yeah.
And then when you're put into it, actually it's a bit like, oh wow. Because you're sort of so out of the loop. And essentially got to a point in my last couple of years where I was sort of putting myself under so much pressure that actually this is like my last game, you know what I mean? If I don't get 100 or if I don't get 5 for, I'm probably going to get dropped next game. And that's not a great place to be, really. If you're trying to be performing at the next level. Now that's where the whole self-belief comes, is that spinning it on its head, rather than thinking, oh, I could be dropped next game. Actually, I'm going to make this position myself and mine and go about it that way. And I think, like I said before, that having that sort of little bit of arrogance about me and self-belief a bit more would have definitely made me change them scenarios into positive scenarios as opposed to sort of looking on the negatives.
Definitely.
You spoke about your versatility almost being your detriment as your career progressed. If you were to go back to the 16-year-old you, would you make a different decision and go, right, I'm just going to be a batsman or bowler, or would you just stick to one of the skills?
No, definitely not. I think from that point of view, look, with the way the game's developing, you've got to be able to do everything, you know what I mean? And I suppose the thing is the fact that I could do everything, all right, I suppose it's interesting, right? It gave me opportunities to do stuff that I probably may not have like opened the batting in a first class game, you know what I mean? All right, I never really had done it, but if I wasn't seen as a batter, they would have gone with someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it works one or two ways, but I think especially for the way the game's going, you've at least got to be able to bat and field and bowl and field. But again, if you see the best teams, look what England now. I remember Coach Simon Willis saying this actually, and this is when Kent were in their pomp when they won the 2020. 2 all-rounders in a team, genuine all-rounders.
Yeah.
And I think again, if you think about who come to mind when you think about England cricket, Ben Stokes, Andrew Flintoff, both of them are genuine all-rounders. And I think being that all-rounder, you're sort of seen as the pivotal point of the team. And I think, again, it's the hardest job, don't get me wrong. Again, you can be in the field all day and then you can go and have to have battle day, you know what I mean? So yeah, I wouldn't, and I think from a whole sort of life point of view anyway, looking back on it, I can't say that I didn't sort of give it my all in terms of was I fit enough or did I train hard enough. Look, I lived a proper serious life growing up, you know what I mean? You would have seen it obviously being sort of within knowing me as a youngster and stuff like that.
Yeah, you went missing in the pubs, Baller. You weren't around.
Yeah, that's it. When I was younger and all that, I was proper sort of stayed away from that sort of environment and stuff like that. And yeah, but again, it enabled me to live an amazing lifestyle from the age of 16 to 24. Just can't complain really. And I suppose obviously now coming out of it, which we potentially might move on to, it's given me a massive perspective on life, for sure. And I'm starting to realise now how much I've experienced, and sort of, I suppose, taking it for granted for sure. And sort of now realising how I can just sit here and have a chat about it.
It's brilliant.
So I just want to mention one thing. Sorry, Adam. So at 17, Jack, you're in the pub with 10 mates. At 17, Adam, you're playing in front of a full house at the Oval at Chelmsford.
I was probably in that crowd actually, rather than the pub.
At Canterbury. As a 17-year-old, what was those full houses, the atmosphere? It must have been an amazing experience.
Yeah, it's quite interesting you say that because, again, for the people that are in the crowd, that is their first thing. Oh my God, it must be amazing getting out of it. But trust me, when you're in the zone, I couldn't tell you sort of what was going on. You know what I mean? Because you are totally in the zone. You don't really think about what people are doing. It's only really sort of like if you're standing on the boundary and you start getting a bit of jib, and you have a bit of banter with people, that's I suppose a bit of the fun side of it. But at the end of the day, it's crazy really, but it's essentially your job, you know what I mean? And I suppose, although the idea of it sounds amazing, sometimes actually going and doing that as part of your it's just part of your daily routine, like what most people get on the tube to work and go and do their thing. And I suppose as a 17, 18-year-old, look, that was the best time to be doing that. Once you start getting past that, and it's now essentially, because back then, look, essentially I was just doing it because I was just good at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where then once it starts becoming your job and you're doing that day in, day out, you're then there. It's in front of 25,000. It's not there. You're not there to enjoy it anymore. You're there. You've got to score 100, or you've got to take a 5.
Stress involved. Yeah.
And I suppose that's I suppose the reality of it. But don't get me wrong. When you have a win and the crowd erupts and stuff like that, there's no better feeling.
We've done a bit of a whistle-stop tour of your career, Bally. But one thing I cannot believe we haven't mentioned is that we spoke about you getting called up to the England under-19s at 16, 17. You actually went on and captained the England under-19s at the next World Cup. How much of an honour was that?
Well, yeah, I suppose you can't really get better than that, captaining your country. So yeah, that was, I suppose, probably the pinnacle of my career. I think, again, I haven't really sort of reflected on that too much. I probably actually remember the first World Cup more so than the second one. But I suppose the time and the effort that went into that in terms of rallying a group of individuals and being that go-to person for a lot of players that are still playing actually.
Yeah.
And you say that funny that actually it was this 2020 finals day that just went, and Ben Duckett was in that.
Yeah.
In that team that I captained, and I was up at the finals day for mate's stag do actually. So I was in walkabout afterwards, and yeah, a few of the Knots lads were in there afterwards, and Ben Duckett was there, who obviously I captained, and he was funny. He sort of said to me, he was like. What you're not playing now. It was like you were like my idol growing up. Like I used to look up to you. You used to give me all, like, sit me down and talk me through everything and stuff like that. And the same with someone like Daniel Bell Drummond, who I've spent a lot of time with growing up. Obviously at Kent, and even still now, he sort of still rings me, and we're sort of very, very close from that point of view, and have good catch ups and talk cricket even still. And yeah, I suppose I very much took that for granted in terms of the effect that I had on people. And I suppose again, the other thing is understanding why I actually got picked to captain the team. Because that obviously meant something.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, an amazing experience, and I suppose great for now and understanding sort of teams and business side of things now, and relating everything that I've learned from cricket into the sort of real world, so to speak. It's definitely helped me massively. I suppose it's happened quite naturally, but again, reflecting on it, there's definitely obviously a load of skills that I've learned from cricket that's enabled me to do that.
How did you find time to sleep? You're bowling, you're batting, you're captaining the side. That must have been really stressful.
Yeah, well. Yeah, to be fair, sleeping is one thing I'm very good at, actually.
Another thing.
I do, mate. And I think probably just purely because of that, because my head, when I'm awake, my head's always spinning. And it's quite funny, actually, that, because when I was a cricketer, I was a bowler, a fielder, and always thinking about the game. Even if I wasn't captaining, I would always be trying to put my 2p piece worth into the skipper and that. So yeah, it probably makes sense why I was so good at sleeping, because once I was so exhausted at the end of the day, I just wanted to shut up shop, and that was it. And even still now, I can, which I think is sort of a great skill to have, because I know a lot of people that struggle to sleep. I can just get in bed and sort of switch off and wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and be raring to go again.
Decent.
Bally, we've gone through your career now. Tell us a bit about, very quickly, how it sort of came to a close and what you're up to now.
Yeah, so when so I ended the end of 2017, sort of got an inkling the end of the halfway through the season that we get sort of an appraisal that they weren't potentially going to keep me on. Sort of didn't make sense either. I was just sort of playing in the second team, not really getting a go. Didn't really have sort of a sense of direction. I went and trialled at Leicester at the end of that season. Nothing come of that. Durham actually showed a bit of an interest, which would have been an interesting one because that was miles away. But nothing come of that, and I basically got to a point where I'd received my last paycheck in the October, and essentially it was like, well, hang on a minute, I've now got to pay, get some money in to pay the bills. And yeah, what I basically decided to stay at home rather than sort of going abroad and playing some cricket, and essentially do some work and sort of try and to tick me over and keep myself fit and essentially get ready for the following season. Now, I suppose it was a tough one because getting that balance between obviously trying to pay the bills, but also obviously keep yourself fit and keep your eye in and stuff like that was obviously a pretty hard balance to get, with sort of having access to facilities and coaches and stuff like that. Now, in that time, I obviously was looking at things outside of cricket. I was also looking at stuff within cricket to try and obviously get another contract. I went and done some training at Sussex. I went and done some training at Northants. And it got to April when we started, and I actually got offered a full-time job. And I was training and stuff like that. And I sort of, I was a bit like, I'm not sure my head's in the right space to be doing this, which, I don't know, mate, was it the easier option to take? Potentially. But I suppose I was probably more thinking later on down the line as opposed to sort of the here and now when it was happening. And I suppose ever since then, I've been on a bit of a topsy-turvy ride with dipping in and out of different sorts of employment, self-employed, employed, different industries. And I think I'm very happy that I've been able to do that, because actually quite a lot of sportsmen come out of the game and essentially, because they're sort of 35, they potentially got a young family, a house that needs the mortgage paying on, and they obviously need to earn a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Where I'm at now, I've been able to go and try jobs out, try things, see what I potentially like as that second career, and not be sort of I suppose having to earn a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Which has enabled me to dip in and out of stuff, and essentially I suppose been a bit like, well, if I don't like it, rather than sort of just staying in for the sake of it, I can come out of it. So and I think now, and this lockdown's probably sort of given me the time to reflect in terms of where I'm at, and I've had sort of a break from cricket. I've probably been out of it for 2 years, and I've played a little bit, and not really sort of been involved in it. It's made me realise actually, it was a massive part of my life.
Yeah.
And sport, not necessarily just cricket, but sport in general, was a massive part of my life. And I think it needs to still be a big part of my life. So I still, when I have been dipping out the coaching side of things, I still do coach. And I think it's only probably been this year, the start of this year, I started doing the Kent under-13s.
Okay.
And that, working with them kids that sort of want to be there and half decent kids, and seeing the effect that you can have on them has made me sort of realise where I think when I first come out of the game, I suppose I probably had a bit of an ego in terms of actually I want to get away from the game and not have to rely on cricket to earn a living. Where actually now I'm starting to realise, well, I've got so much to offer You probably obviously just hearing me speak now. I've spoke at you guys rather than you speaking at me, because I have got that sort of passion to give back and share my experiences. So I think yeah, where I'm sort of at now, I'm in a bit of a limbo. Obviously, naturally, where we're at with this pandemic that we're in, everyone I think is in a little bit of that. So yeah, who knows where I sort of end up, but yeah, I think sort of going forward, sport is definitely going to start becoming a much better play a much bigger part of my life.
And you touched on it there, Bally, but the sort of love for the game is still there. When you're sitting at, where were you last year when sort of Ben Stokes was hitting those winning runs in the Ashes Test and the World Cup final? Were you watching those as a big cricket fan, or is there an element of what if, and looking back on your career with maybe not regret, but look at it and go, that could maybe have been me at some point?
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and I think again that's where quite a lot of sportsmen struggle coming out, is that whole that should have been me, and probably like a bit of bitterness about it.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said before, look, I can't complain what happened with me, and I think that sort of grounding, how I got brought up with my parents, and I suppose a bit sort of where I grew up in Bexley Heath, you know what I mean, sort of just living a normal life, made me appreciate what I've got what I had a lot more. And again, watching that last year, look, it was amazing, and obviously seeing a guy that I knew and played with, and again, you can relate to what he was going through as well. It's just amazing, mate, and I think it's obviously given the sport of cricket a massive boost. A lot of people and a lot of young kids are now aspiring cricketers, when usually it's actually aspiring sportsmen, so footballers usually. So yeah, from that point of view, I've not got no sort of bitterness towards it, or what could have been, what couldn't have been, because again, if I sit there thinking about it, I'm only just going to get myself down, and you know what I mean, which isn't a great place to be in. Look, things could have been different, 100%. You know what I mean, but I think, look, I can't complain. I basically got paid to travel the world playing cricket. So yeah,
I think that's a brilliant attitude to have.
I think that's absolutely that great way to look at. You had some amazing experiences, and you reached, under 19 cricket captain for England is a huge place to be. So it's great you look back on it fondly, rather than could have gone on for longer.
Should we ask him the killer question, Cal?
It's got to be the killer question. Over to you, Jack.
Right, so at FCE, what we do is we put on events for our clients. We take them to anywhere they want to go. We look after everything from start to finish. So, Bally, we know you're a big sports fan now. If FCE could take you to any sporting event in the world, all expenses paid, trip, where could we take you?
Oh, geez, I reckon Dubai World Cup.
Yeah?
Yeah, for the racing.
We know you're a racing fan. We might get you to Plumpton or something instead. But,
Ludlow.
Ludlow,
yeah,
on a Tuesday afternoon.
I'll tell you about Plumpton. My dad always said, if you're having a bet at Plumpton on a Monday afternoon, you know you're struggling.
I like the sound of Dubai. Dubai's very FCE. We could do that in style, Jack. I'm up for that one.